Carole Jolin is the president of l'Assemblée de la Francophonie de l'Ontario, the Francophone Assembly of Ontario. Mr. Jolin, first of all, thanks for making time to speak with me. We saw François Legault today, the Premier of Quebec, meeting with Doug Ford in Toronto and asking Doug Ford to reconsider his decision to cancel plans for the Francophone University and that decision to merge the Office of the French Language Services Commissioner with the Provincial Ombudsman. Do you think it makes a difference to have the intervention of the Premier of Quebec trying to pressure Mr. Ford to reconsider?
Well, it adds to the support we're getting left and right from other provinces as well, from leaders of our communities that are saying to the government, Ford, this is not right, you're making a mistake there. And we heard Madame Jolin, we heard Monsieur Trudeau recently too. That adds to the people that are giving us our support and are putting pressure on the Ford government to change his mind.
If these decisions by the Ford government, cost-cutting measures go ahead, what do you think the wider impacts are for the entire country in all of this?
Well, for one thing, every time you open a university, you open to the world, and there's a lot of international students, for example, that are coming to Canada and studying in our universities. And it's a brand name. Like when you have a French university, which we have a little one in the north of Ontario, but in a city like Toronto, it's a brand name for the city. It brings the community together. It brings people there. It brings money to the community. So it's more than a symbol. Like it's something that we need desperately, because if we're looking at the concentration of the Francophones in Ontario right now, the demography is about to change, because 4 or 5 years down the road, it won't be the concentration of Francophone won't be in the east anymore. It's going to be in the Greater Toronto area. So we have to be able to offer something to our students who will graduate from the high schools that we have. And every 2 years right now, both of the school boards are opening elementary schools. Every 4 years, there's new high schools coming up. And the options that they have in Toronto right now, it's through the London campus, which belongs to York.
Right.
And there's a few programs there, but it's not enough. And the options that that Francophones have is to go to Sudbury, to Laurentian University, or come to Ottawa. And we know that the students today don't do that. What they do, they go to the nearest university that they have. And right now, we're losing all those students to the English system.
Okay, you said you've been receiving support from across the country. We've heard federal politicians weigh in. We have the Premier of Quebec weighing in on the issue now. Do you think this is now an issue of national unity?
I believe so, because it's not a question just for the Ontario. It's a question that concerns the whole nation, because if you have a government attacking the rights of Francophones like we see right now, who's next? And basically, we know pretty much who's next, because we see the situation in New Brunswick right now. And after that, we don't know what's going to happen. So I understand why the whole country is behind us.
Premier Ford says there are 10 universities and colleges in Ontario right now that offer 300 French language courses. He's suggesting, look, there are lots of services already for the Francophones of the province in the field of education. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't know where Mr. Ford has been taking the numbers that he's referring to, because he's not referring to any numbers, for one thing, but we know for sure that the programs that are offered to our high school students graduating are clearly not enough and very far from what is offered in the English universities. That's why we have to improve that. And one of the way of doing it is in having a French university right down in Toronto.
The Premier also says that he's got to save money. He's got a $15 billion budget, and he wants to consolidate services from the French Language Services Commissioner, move that over to the Ombudsman. He and his minister, Caroline Mulroney, say, look, those services are still going to continue. There's just not going to be a separate office. How important is it to have the separate office?
It is important to have a separate office. For one thing, the commissioner was doing a lot more than just receiving complaints. He was going in the community, making sure that people knew about the French law services, telling them that if they were not respect to put a complaints together, that he would investigate and work regarding some solutions. He was working a lot with many ministries, trying to improve active offer with the ministry, making them aware of the francophones in all the designated area in Ontario. And he published many reports that help us at the political level to advance many of the files that we have. So it's a lot more than just receiving complaints. And for all the respect that I have for Monsieur Paul Dubé, who's the head of the Ombudsman, his plate is already full. The government is just adding to it, and he will never have the time to do all the work that the commissioner was doing, extra from just receiving the complaints.
Okay, let's finish on this. You've been holding meetings to develop a plan to fight back against Mr. Ford and the cuts in services. What will you do?
Well, at this point, we're evaluating all the possibility. That's what we've done yesterday. There's going to be political action. There's going to be community action. We're with our people from the law department. We're looking at what are the options that we have to tell this government we don't agree with what he's doing. And we have a communication group that have been put together. Today there was a phone conference with all the community organizations in every region of Ontario, and we're ready to tell that government. We know we heard that the brand name that they used just after once they started working at Queen's Park, promise made, promise kept. But for the francophones, it's a very different sound since last Thursday. It's promise made, promise not kept.
All right, Monsieur Jolin, thank you for your time today. It's been good to talk to you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Merci.